Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Treasurer's Handbook training session. So, Cheryl King, I think I know most of you. And I'm joined by Sue Hanson, who is our controller.
Hello, everybody.
So we look forward to covering the Treasurer's Handbook and the guidelines that are contained therein. So let's move along. So we're going to end. This is an hour and a half session. We're not going to take any breaks. And it's actually it's a Zoom meeting. So we're going to ask you to put your questions in the chat, and we'll handle questions at the end. This is not CMS training. There is a separate training session that's scheduled for Thursday, September 7th, and that'll also be from 12 to 1:30 via Zoom. So you can register for that session as well. That'll be led by John Pepe. So next, this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the introduction to the role of conference treasurer, what the protocol is for incoming treasurers. This is the time of year that oftentimes we rotate or we bring on a new treasurer. So we have some protocols for that. We're going to cover the operating procedures. There's a process that we undertake for grant funding that's initiated by our grants department here at the council office. And we'll talk about some conference best practices. Okay, so moving along. The introduction to the conference treasurer role. Your role is unique and serves a vital need in achieving our mission, as our loving service is bound by legal, financial, and practical expectations of our donors, supporters, and the government. So as you probably know, the Georgia Council is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit under which we're calling ourselves here the SVdP Conference Support Center. It's all the work that we conduct from the Chamblee office at 2050 Chamblee Tucker Road. But our 501(c)(3) entity includes what we have here at Chamblee, the Conference Support Center, all 73 conferences, and all thrift stores. We're all under one single tax ID. And we file one consolidated Form 990, which is the tax form that we file annually with the IRS. So we have all the corporate documentation. If you ever have a need to see our council 501(c)(3) letter from the IRS, our bylaws, or any other corporate related document, you can request that from me. We engage an outside CPA firm. The name is Carr, Riggs & Ingram. They were formerly Brooks McGinnis, and they merged with Carr, Riggs about a year ago. And they've been our auditors for many, many years. So they know our organization well. And the audit process has become much more efficient. So you'll become aware of what the audit needs are this year, what they're going to be looking at, what conferences they'll be selecting to do more detailed testing, and so forth. In addition to the annual outside audit, every conference conducts their own annual internal audit. And that's covered by the appendices that are available for you to use to conduct that internal audit. And we follow this general principle that says that every monetary transaction must involve two people, just like the home visits do, so that we always can ensure proper process and controls. So speaking of the protocol for the incoming treasurer, the roles and responsibility are to maintain the full and accurate accounts for all of the incoming receipts, donations, as well as the disbursements in the official records, which belong to the conference, and the depositing of all monies and other valuables in the name and to the credit of the conference. So, in addition, the treasurer will attend all the meetings of the conference, and they will inform the conference members of the financial position. They will provide a treasurer's, we're calling it a treasurer's update at every meeting. It doesn't have to be a written report, but it should be a treasurer's update. In addition, the treasurer will prepare an annual budget for the conference, which will be also approved by the conference annually, and the disbursement of all funds as approved by the conference upon receipt of proper documentation. So, establishing the new treasurer, we advise that the current treasurer spend some time with the incoming treasurer for mentoring and informing them of the role in training, so that they become familiar with their role. So we have somebody, okay, coming into the meeting. Okay, so I'm going to be referring back to the handbook. So on page 7, we talk about some procedures that we want to have in place for handling the collections, counting, recording, and acknowledging donations to ensure money's collected and it's kept secured until it can be deposited. That we have two non-related counters involved in the count. We reconcile the count sheet with the deposit slip in the bank statement. On collecting donations, we will be getting collections coming in through numerous sources, including second collections, local community fundraising, or boxes, and online. And we had a district treasurer's meeting last week, and we talked about the movement to more online donations. So to the extent we're able to do that, it's very effective, because many times a donor will select a recurring payment, and so that can be set up to come in as a monthly donation. Again, the donations need to be kept secure. We're going to be counting separate from the church, because sometimes the money comes in and the church does the counting and then remits the funds to us. But otherwise, we're counting it, preparing a count sheet, and submitting that to the treasurer. The treasurer will be using these count sheets, keep track of the donations. The preference is for the treasurer not to participate in the count. The president and the treasurer should establish the count procedures, and at no time should they count them together. And then making the deposit. The deposit should be made as soon as possible after the money is collected. The deposit slip is given to the treasurer. And again, the same person should not count the donation, make the deposit, and enter the deposit into the accounting records. So those are some basic control procedures that we want to make sure get followed. Going on. As far as recording the donations, we're recommending that you keep a log of all your donors' names and donations and addresses. We recommend acknowledgement of each donation. The council requires an acknowledgement of any donation of $250 or more, and a retention of the copy of the letter for 2 years. The conference is required to notify the council of one-time or cumulative donations of $5,000 or more in a fiscal year. that comes from either an individual, a foundation, or a government. So we'll be requesting that of you once we close the fiscal year, so that we are actually required to report that information in the Form 990. So that's an IRS regulation. But we just get the information and we report it. So we also want to say that we recommend that you communicate the donations and the spend, the financial assistance provided to your parish and your priest monthly or quarterly. I think that it's really great for them to be aware of what we're doing as a conference. And then just be aware that certain donations are not tax deductible. So the value of the volunteer services cannot be deducted by the volunteer. And there's some other legal aspects to be aware of regarding donations. It's not legal to receive a tax deduction by directing a donation to a certain individual through a charitable organization. Funds received by the conference in which the donor specifies that his or her donation should be spent on a specific program must be spent on that program. Okay, moving along. Again, we're now moving into the disbursement process, dispersing conference funds. The disbursement of the funds should be made according to written guidelines. So each conference should develop their own set of written guidelines that they follow for disbursements of funds. That'll come up in the audit because we'll be asking certain conferences to provide those guidelines that they follow. Checks over $5,000 require 2 signatures. The preferred method of payment, however, is not a paper check, it's an electronic payment. We're trying to move more and more in that direction so that we're making payments by ACH, by debit card, or by direct payment on the website of the vendor. So you'll be getting more information about ACH, how you can set your bank account up for ACH services, how to get your vendors, your landlords, and other people you're paying to accept an ACH. And I know there's some challenges with that, but we're going to provide as much help as we can to try to get those paper checks converted over to ACH. They're much more efficient. They're more secure. They do not have the risk of so much fraud that we're seeing with paper checks. They also enable you to reverse a transaction if it turns out there was some kind of problem with it that might have been made in error. You can reverse it and bring the funds back. So some of the other disbursement guidelines are to never give a blank check to anyone. Never give a check to a client. Every payment must agree with the supporting documentation of the receipt or a case or the case record in paper or electronic form. So for example, the case record and the check memo line should include the account number and the client name or ID number. So no, and this did come up with one of our conferences, that we are not to provide any money, any of our funds, to another charitable organization, no matter how worthy the cause. That's a national rule, and we abide by that. So conferences that are blessed with an abundance should share with conferences in need. They can share internally within their own district. They can send money here to the council that will go into the district twinning fund, which will enable us to help conferences outside of your district. There's a payment that we'll talk about for solidarity and the process around that. Funds can also be dispersed for international or domestic twinning, outside of the Georgia Council. We can provide aid to a member and their family. And there's guidelines in the handbook about how to handle those situations if a member needs assistance. And then just another reminder, even though we're a 501c3, we don't pay federal or state income tax. We do pay state and local tax and sales tax. So moving to the next slide, the treasurer will give the report to their conference at each meeting. The conference treasurer and the president send the monthly financial report to the district treasurer. And then the monthly financial report includes the report form, which is generated from CMS, the check register, copy of the bank statements, reconciliation, if there are reconciling items of outstanding checks and deposits, and a copy of the count sheet. And we are recommending that all of those records get uploaded to CMS. And I know right now we don't have a good system for keeping track of those other than bank statements. There's a specific under documents. There's a file for bank statements, but all of these other documents don't have a filing name yet. But we are requesting an enhancement to CMS that will have a good naming system for you to put all those documents in so that they can be located by someone who may need to see them at a later date. So that's in process, but for now I would just put them up under documents, under records, and we will get the folders all named for you as soon as we're able to get that enhancement developed. The solidarity payment, I think most of you are aware, the solidarity payment is calculated on the amount of your incoming donations. And we are getting that payment from you through a direct debit to your account on the 20th of the month. So that process has been in place for a while now, and I think it's working very well. So we appreciate your assistance with that. The annual report gets prepared by the treasurer and the secretary. It's approved by the president, and it's submitted to the district president by October 30th. That'll be the same deadline again this year. And then the audit team is required to conduct the internal audit annually and to submit verification forms to the district treasurer, and we want that to be completed by September 20th. Those dates have been the same for the last few years, so we're keeping those dates consistent. And we just want to recognize that the district treasurer serves the conference and the council in very significant ways. So this slide covers some guidelines around grant funding. So if you're able to find a grant in your community or in your county, we request that all the applications for those grants be coordinated with our development office here at the council. So this would include EFSP grants, any other grants for rent utilities, as well as a solicitation potentially from a foundation or a corporation. So we want to make sure that we're well coordinated regarding those requests for those grant applications. you're the best resource we have for finding local funding opportunities. And then we're here to support those efforts. So the conference funding and the grant allocation process. So the conference soliciting the funds and working through our development office will be able to report those on the line 5A. And then those grant funds would not be subject to solidarity. That's really, there's a little bit more detail here, but we will coordinate in the finance and the development office. Will monitor the fund distribution process and the guidelines and direction where needed. So depending on how the grant works. EFSP, we handle all the incoming funding for that, as well as the disbursements that you submit requests for. Conferences receiving unsolicited grant funds are required to report the fund restrictions of the agreement to the development staff. And if you have any questions about how to apply for local grants, we have a new grants manager, Renee Basil, and her email is here for you, as well as her direct line. So she's a great resource. She's got lots of contacts in the community, and she's done this kind of work for other nonprofits. So she's really well informed about how to get more grant funds. Okay. Let's see. We talked a little bit about tracking donor information, making sure you have a good donor tracking system or some sort of a CRM system. If you don't have your own, I know there are resources available through National. They have some recommendations on some services or some packages that you could subscribe to for donor tracking. Verifying the client information, the bill information to make sure that what you're paying is what's due prior to making the payment. There's some specific guidelines on how to do that in the handbook, so you can refer to that. You should also have a good system in place for tracking gift cards. And I know a lot of conferences use gift cards as a way of helping neighbors in need. And donated goods and services, we have to keep track of all of the donated food, clothing, other items that are received. The food, we record that based on weight. So, and then we value the food at the new rate now for fiscal 2022 is going to be $1.92. So that needs to get recorded and reflected in your financial records. Important dates. I've touched on this, but some important dates to remember. Regarding the monthly closing process, the financial report is due to your district treasurer by the 10th of the month, and you should close the month in CMS by the 10th of each month. And I know some of you keep it open till your district treasurer approves your report, but we just ask that you allow time for that so that the close can actually happen by the 10th of each month. And that's really happening for the most part consistently, and we really appreciate the timeliness. I know occasionally people are traveling or there's, some other issue that comes up, illness, and things happen. If you can just keep us informed if there's going to be a delay. But the timeliness really helps us because we have to take all that information and compile it and put it together with our information at the council and report on it. And so the timeliness is really, really important. We mentioned written conference income and disbursement guidelines. And we want those formalized and sent to our office by September 20th. The internal audit is due to your district treasurer by September 20th and due to the council office by September 20th. These documents, I'm also suggesting that we just go ahead and upload those to CMS, and I'm creating another folder name for those so that they can just go directly to CMS. It makes it really much more streamlined for everybody to have those documents available for the audit, for your district treasurers. If they want to look at anything in particular, all those documents are there and they can find them. And then finally, the annual report is due by October 30th. Okay. So I guess we're ready to open the floor for questions. So do we have anything in the chat, Amanda?
Nothing in the chat. No questions?
Well, if everybody wants to can they just unmute and then
Yes.
throw questions that you've thought of? Deborah? Oh, you're on mute. Everybody
Okay.
needs to
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I've been taking some notes, but basically after I read the treasurer's handbook, and I'm new this year, I'm an accountant, so I understand everything that you want, but the hard copies, I've been going through files and I have a lot of paper statements, bank statements, the conference reports, the outstanding and so forth. We have a ton of files going back to maybe 2014. So, I looked at the handbook and it said things about bank statements, and I'm going, well, the bank statement I've already uploaded to CMS. So do I need to keep the hard copy? No. Okay. So just those things that we can't update yet. And in the future, when you get those buttons, then we wouldn't have to keep those.
Correct.
Like the monthly report is out there, the outstanding checks. Now, how do you want me to show you the reconciliation? Because what I do is print out the bank statement and I double line things that match, like on the outstanding check report, on the bank statement. Should I just upload that bank statement, or do you want a written report? I guess I haven't really, I know how to reconcile. I've been reconciling. I just don't know if there's a report.
There isn't a specific report format or anything.
Okay.
So if you have whatever what method of showing that reconciliation is, just upload that. That's fine.
All right. I'll just do the double lines, like what the outstanding report, this matches that and so forth.
Sure. That'll work.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, I think we do have some questions in the chat.
Can you see them, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we record our quarterly food drive donations that we provide to a local food bank, not a Catholic facility? Okay. So you're doing a drive for a local food bank. I mean, I would think you would weigh the food, record it as an in-kind donation, and then an in-kind gift or in-kind expense.
Okay.
At the $1.92 per pound.
Okay. We have a food drive coming up this weekend. We do it quarterly. And I don't think we've ever recorded pounds in, pounds out. We've never, quote, taken credit for it, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to show that so we can show it to our parish.
I think
what
it,
we're doing.
yeah, I would record it because again, it's activity that we're undertaking to provide, food for
Mhm.
people in need, even though it's not going to our food bank or our food pantry.
Why isn't it?
Why
Uh,
isn't it?
we don't
Just
have a
question.
food. We don't have a food bank at St. Matthew's. I know St. Philip's over in Jonesboro does, and I think St. Mary Magdalene down in Sharpsburg does. I'm not sure about Holy Trinity, but we've always supported the Palmetto Baptist because even though we're in Fayette County, 99% of our cases involve people in South Fulton, Palmetto, and Fairburn. So we started to support the Palmetto Baptist food pantry. I'm not sure how many years ago we did that, and that's just what we do. We don't have the facilities to have our own food bank, so that's our service. We just collect the food, and it's usually we usually collect about 40 banana boxes, so that's got to be 1,600 pounds of food, plus or minus. But we've never recorded it as donations and subsequent
I think it should
donations.
be, yeah. I
I-
think we should have that
I
recorded.
agree.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I assume
Well,
you-
I
you
know
spend
that
time-
Holy Family, we have a small food room, and once a month we get food from someplace. I assume that it came, and and I get charged for it, and I record the charge. But I assumed that it came from some food bank that St. Vincent de Paul had. So if that's true, first of all, if that's true, then why wouldn't the food that you gather go to that main food bank? Do we have a main food bank that we distribute out to our parishes that have food closets? Okay, so that's what I'm asking.
So we distribute food here that gets donated to our food location, our warehouse, and then we send it out to the conferences that have food pantries.
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. You made the comment in your presentation that we don't support other charities. I don't have a problem with them, what they're doing. I think it's great, but I'm just saying, if they're using it in South Fulton, maybe there's some South Fulton St. Vincent de Paul food banks or your food bank that distributes maybe to South Fulton. It's just a question, a process.
Well, I think we're sending it where it's needed and where there's pantries available and conferences not need it and they've asked for it.
Right. And what we do is we, if we have a case where somebody needs food, we'll either give them Kroger cards, one or two, or we'll give them a voucher to bring to the food bank. So we actually send our clients, I don't know, maybe 20, 25% of those clients get a voucher or less.
Here, you're
Yeah,
saying.
but Palmetto and Fairburn are our support areas. Like I said, 99% of our cases are there in South Fulton, even though we're in Fayette County. But and again, I don't know how long we've done that, but it's worked out pretty good.
Okay. Well, and I think your situation of your conference running a drive,
Mhm.
right? It is,
Great.
and then donating the goods to another to a different food bank is different than if we were to make a donation, like a financial donation,
Right.
to a charity. And the reason, my understanding of why that rule was created is because when a donor donates their money to us, it's with the expectation that we spend it
Mhm.
on our programs, not that
Mhm.
we give it to Catholic Charities or somebody
Yeah.
else. So I think that's the genesis of that rule.
Okay.
So it came up with another conference, and I was able to kind of determine that was why it was there.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, let's see. We have a question from Charlie. As I understand, if a conference receives a bequest under will, it is not subject to solidarity. This, as it relates to the conference, intends to donate the funds of bequest to the Twinning Fund and Capital Campaign. Actually, bequests are subject to solidarity. That's my
Cheryl, in
understanding.
this case, the bequest is getting immediately donated back to the Twinning Fund, with it. So
Yeah.
it's basically going through, with it. They're not keeping it. So why should they get hit for a solidarity
Well,
on
they're not
something they don't
keeping-
keep?
Oh, they're not even keeping it. Okay.
No,
All right, I misunderstood. I
No
thought a
sweat.
portion. Okay. Well, I think we make an exception in that case. It's
Yeah.
almost like a pass-through.
it is.
Yeah. Okay. I misunderstood, Charles.
No, I just wanted to clarify.
Generally speaking,
um,
if your conference gets a bequest, and I mean, we've seen them happen. Where
In
you'll,
this case, it's one of my, because, I'm district president. So this is one of my conferences that got 2 bequests back to back. It's like 2 weeks. They in turn want to support the Twinning Fund, the capital campaign, and something else that I don't remember.
well, we really are grateful for that. So I saw that one of them was actually received in July.
No,
And you
and
said-
yep, and I think they may have talked to Mike about it already, but I just wanted to check. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Well, that clarifies it. I didn't understand that. But typically the bequest would come to the conference would pay solidarity, and then the rest of the funds would stay with the conference, and they could use it as they determined to use it. So they could twin it. We'd always be open to having some funds at the district level to help. Let's say donations to other organizations is okay if it is food. Okay, well, I think we kind of covered that. The food.
Okay.
I don't think that's what the distinction was more that the money, it's the funding. The funds would not go to another charity. But food, I think, would be okay.
Okay, I have another clarification, sorry, on that food. Okay, so when we at Holy Family get a food distribution from the St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank, we're charged $90, $60, $100, whatever. So I'm assuming that other parishes that have food bank are getting those charges too.
Mhm.
So my point is if they're out there collecting food and giving it away to another organization, why wouldn't it be as well served given to our warehouse? And then maybe each conference wouldn't be charged as much.
Well, I believe the charge is for the delivery.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
5 pounds.
Oh, I thought it was based on pounds.
And so if you pick up, it's $50 per. If we deliver, then it's 75 cents per pound. And part of that is the fuel and everything it's taken us to do the delivery.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not charging for the food itself. It's
okay,
for
okay.
the delivery service. And I think the food donation, it sounds like it's a local issue where they're trying to serve their neighbors.
Oh, yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I don't see any
Okay.
kind of conflict with it.
Okay, okay.
I mean,
I
our
didn't know
food
it was for
pantry is-
delivery. I didn't know it was delivery. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all righty. Anything else? We've got time. We've only, we're not even an hour in, so feel free if you want to bring up something even off the agenda that you want to ask about.
I have a question. I'm only 15 minutes raising my hand to do this job. So half the things you,
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that's okay. That's okay. I heard you say something which was odd to me. No aid to members or family members. Why is that? That seems
No,
like very
No, I
unfair.
didn't, no, I may have misspoken.
Okay,
We can provide aid. Yes, we can provide aid to our own members in need.
okay,
Yes, we do that.
okay.
And in
good
the
enough.
handbook, there's some information about how to handle that case. It has to be the same as a neighbor and, you know, a non-member asking for aid. There still should be a home visit. There should still be two people. It should all be documented.
Sure.
I was just trying to clarify that there's some guidelines for you to follow if one of your members comes for assistance.
Cheryl, I believe there's actually a resolution on that, that it needs to be in written, Mike needs to be informed with written
Okay.
communication.
Okay,
Yeah, I believe there's a resolution somewhere.
yeah, I think you're right. It spelled out specifically what steps to take when a conference member needs help. It's
Now, what we
a
do
few more
do
steps.
is if it's rent to a family member, the answer is no. So we never would do that. Like you live in your father's apartment, we don't go there at all. We just say, we're just not paying family members, not of our members, but you know, a neighbor in need that we just did a home visit. Oh, I need $1,500. It's going to my father. We wouldn't do that. Is that
Right.
how everybody else does it? We would just say no, because we just don't really know what's going on. What's your feeling on that?
I think that sounds appropriate to me, and that would be in your written guidelines.
Okay,
Right.
well, 15 minutes, you know. I don't know.
Well,
what
I
to
know
say.
you're going to be well trained. You're at Holy Family?
No, Good Shepherd. Mark Anderson is our treasurer.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, you'll be well trained, and
okay,
we're always here to help.
very
There's
good.
lots of people that have tremendous amount of experience and have been doing their roles for a long time. So there's always help
Okay,
with anything that comes up.
okay, very good. Thanks.
Okay, I got one more question. Is there a guideline for annual report for what you want in the annual report?
Yes.
Okay, where is that? I mean, because in the handbook, it just says, oh, the fiscal year, you know, and the date. It says we turn it into you and then it goes up, but it doesn't really say what kind of information do you want?
Yeah, and there's going to be specific training on that.
Oh, is that the next one that's in September?
CMS
Oh, yeah, I think
training.
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll
Okay.
get into, you know,
Okay.
because there's a lot more involved with the annual report
Mhm.
because we get a lot more data from you, not just the financials, but we get all of your statistical,
Mhm.
numbers,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm
demographics,
sure John
all of
Pepe
that.
and Phil Mooney are in my district, my
Well,
conference,
then you
so
got
I'm
the
sure
expert.
they know. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I've signed up for that other one too, so that's good.
Okay, well, that'll give you a lot of information, but yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
there's a lot of guidelines. There may even be beyond the CMS training on the annual report too.
Okay. Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah. Anybody else?
Cheryl, I believe the September 7th training is the annual report one, and
Okay,
the
good.
other CMS beginners hasn't been scheduled yet
Yeah, okay.
because we're coming up at the end of the year, so it's about annual report time.
Oh, okay,
So
Yeah.
I think he's going to do that one first.
okay. Yes, that makes
Carol, I have a
sense.
question regarding the food pantry in CMS. Is there any updates on that?
The food pantry
Yeah.
in,
In terms of entering recipients into CMS, I know that I think at least a year ago, Amanda and I had talked about that was maybe being developed or coming. Because when we report through CMS for our assistance office, but we don't report through CMS for food.
Right.
And right now there's no mechanism to do that. So I was just trying to figure out, what's the best way to handle that.
well, I'd have to follow up on that. I don't know the status. I don't know if we have an enhancement coming to allow for recording that. So I'd need to do some research and get back to you on that,
Okay.
Martha. I just,
That'd be great.
I wasn't aware that there was a limitation there, so.
Thanks. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we're starting to record that here in the council because we're doing 700 or 800 families a month. And so we're starting to record those and we're finding little issues with that. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And like the USDA, the information we collect from the USDA doesn't include birthdays, for example, which you need to actually try to input somebody into CMS, as just a
Right.
beginning point. So anything
Yeah.
that you can do to help us maybe just keep tally, or maybe provide an alternate method for,
Right.
I mean, I know that I tally it and add it up on our annual report, and we'll keep doing that.
Yeah.
But any updates would be appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I did let Mike know that there's no reporting on the food during the year. And so that when we're trying to tell our story every month, it's not a very accurate, story.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody have anything else?
If I can make a quick comment about making payments by debit card over the phone. We had a friend in need. We were trying to make a payment for her car loan, and it was with a credit union up in the Washington, D.C. area. And I tried Friday, and they require the client to be on the phone also, which I couldn't arrange on Friday because she wasn't home and I was heading out. Anyway, yesterday we arranged, and it was four of us. It was a four-way phone call because I had to involve our intake manager because what she owed was more than what we thought she owed. So anyway, it turned into a 45-minute phone call.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was painful. And our client's English was 50-50, but the vendor, the credit union was almost giving the client the third degree about why she was late on her payment, and it got to the point where it wasn't going the way we wanted. But anyway, it worked out, but we couldn't pay the full amount. But it was just very difficult to make that payment, which is unusual. Sometimes debit payments take 2 minutes. You get online, boom, boom, they're done. But there's times where they're quite difficult. And then there's others where, like if you go to make a debit payment, and some of our local vendors, some want the amount of their last payment, which we don't have in CMS, so we have to get that. Some want passwords to get in, which we don't have. There's times where we use our debit card, and sometimes the system will ask whether we can save the card, which we don't. But then there's times where we use a debit card and we don't know whether it goes away. There's systems where it's not that clear whether when we enter our information, the names and everything else, you're not sure whether it's retaining it, which is not good or not. So, you know, there's times where I feel like I'd rather write a check because it's easier, but I know we're getting away from it. But there's times where it's not very easy. You know?
Yeah, when we make car payments, we try to write checks here because it is difficult.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I mean, they're required to, you know, to, keep that number. They're, you know, they're not allowed to save it
yeah.
under the regulations. So, but yeah, I can see where you'd be nervous.
There's something
but-
about checks too. I'm not sure how it is with other areas of the city and the state, but we're having problems here in Fayette with checks being stolen from the post office, whether it's
Yes.
the outside box. And actually, we have 4 post offices here in the county, and all of them have sealed off their outside box. Matter of fact, I stopped at the Fayette one yesterday, and they've actually taken the box away. It's not the outside box is not even there. So we have to go inside, which is fine. But we had an issue about 6 months ago where we had 2 checks stolen. And I think you were involved in this, Cheryl, where I wrote a check for $63 and somebody stole it and changed it to $6,300 and cashed it. You know, it just went through the bank. You know, it's,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, the banks aren't catching these
yeah.
checks that are
Do you
getting
get that money back from the bank?
altered.
We did. We bank with Truist, and I saw it the next day when I opened up our Truist account online, and I saw it 6,300. So I went right over to the bank, and we got on the phone with their fraud department. And the next day, the funds were back in our account.
Oh, good, good.
Although we did have to close that account and then open up another one because the bank said that it wasn't clear whether it would happen again, whatnot. So we had to run the one account out, which took about a month or so, close it, open up another one. So, but I know, and here in Fayette County, I know they just arrested 2 people, and they found checks in their apartment that they had taken from post office boxes or people's boxes that totaled $45,000. So that's an issue going around too with checks. So.
Yeah, no, we're seeing that happen. As a matter of fact, we aren't using those window envelopes anymore to mail our checks. We're putting them in a sealed, you know, white regular envelope and just addressing them so that it's not obvious that there's a check in the envelope. That's one thing we did. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of check fraud out there. It's a real
Yeah,
problem.
here I'm in East Cobb, and we had, I'm also a treasurer of the HOA, but the prior president said in March, we had 3 of our neighborhood checks. They checked with the post office and they said there were 250 homes in the area that did not receive any mail because it had been taken, probably out of a box. So, you know, it happens everywhere. It's unreal.
It is.
Mhm.
So I would say just monitor your checking account closely.
I
Be
do.
watching it, because as soon as you see something that's not authorized, then you can be on top of it. And we should be protected. We should be able to reverse these things and get the bank to you know, to take care of it. So the mailing experience. Oh, you're sending your checks, but okay, well,
I wonder what they're paying for priority mail. How's that working?
that expensive? That was Pat. Is that Patricia Hampton that made that comment? You're on mute. Everybody's back on mute.
She wrote $9.65.
Okay, yeah, she did.
Okay.
They get it the next day? Is it guaranteed?
What we have had to do for our motel to home program. So for clients that have to get a payment timely, we're actually sending them by FedEx. And I think they're $15, right?
Like 25.
25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it gets expensive if you have to do that on a regular basis. So,
Next day, if local, 2 to 3 days, maybe we have that.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe you need to talk to Pat for $9.65.
yeah, that might save us some
Sold.
money. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was neglectful in not starting with an opening prayer, which I had intended to do, but we're going to end with a closing prayer. And I'm going to have Sue do that.
Again, thank you all for coming. And if we bow our heads, we'll say a prayer. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, please bless this information, the St. Vincent's that do all the home visits. Allow them to continue to have the spirituality that is granted through these home visits and with the camaraderie of each other. Please continue to pray for our neighbors in need. There are so many these days. And just protect us from all that we need protected from. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for your participation, and please feel free to reach out anytime. We're always available for questions, and we really appreciate all that you do. We know you're all volunteers, and it takes, you know, a lot of effort to do what you do, and we couldn't do what we do without your tremendous participation and cooperation. So we thank you greatly.
Yes,
Thank you, Cheryl.
Everybody have a wonderful week.
You too.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.